All right, everybody, welcome back. Good afternoon. We've got some more edge rusher free agents to take a look at here. And the earlier video was obviously the top of the line guys, or at least top of the line that you can get in free agency. The guys who are going to cost a lot of money, but in theory should offer a lot of positive things on the field. This is going to be kind of a tier down. These are guys that I think can be effective starters, but I wouldn't expect them to be able to carry an edge room by himself, and I wouldn't expect him to be like a Pro Bowler or anything like that. But you can get a long way with a group of guys that are effective rather than one guy that's a superstar. That's what the Seahawks did last year. DeMarcus Lawrence kind of played like a superstar, maybe, but they didn't have the Myles Garrett or the TJ Watt type, and they won the Super Bowl. So there is something to be said for that. All right, so let's take a look at some of these options here. All right, everybody, before we go any further into this video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about the Sleeper app and some new functionality they've recently rolled out, Team Picks. With Team Picks, you can pick winners in all kinds of sporting events. Right now, we have NBA basketball, college basketball, NHL hockey is going on, baseball's going to start in a little more than a month, and of course, you have futures in the NFL, even though the games in the NFL are over. Right now, if you look to my left here, you can actually see you can bet on next year's Super Bowl winner. They've got the Seahawks leading the way in those odds, by the way, at 12%. How does that make you feel as a Seahawks fan? But you can bet on MVP, you can bet on draft picks, you can bet on player destinations, all kinds of fun stuff, even though the season is over. So that is Team Picks over on Sleeper. A lot of fun stuff you can do. Okay, so the first guy to look at here would be Jaelan Phillips of most recently the Eagles, but he was a first round pick of the Dolphins several years ago. Good player, but there are a lot of red flags here. He's missed a lot of time over the last few years to injury. His best season in terms of getting to the quarterback was his rookie year, which is very rare, very odd. And I would call it a little bit of a red flag. And the Dolphins obviously traded him at the trade deadline. They sent him to Philly. So he lost some of the excuses that he could have had, right? If Jaelan Phillips had just stayed on the Dolphins, you could say, hey, he's got nothing to work with. He's got no good teammates because they had to lose everybody after they paid some of their offensive players like Tua and Tyreek Hill. Well, he went to Philadelphia, a team that had just won the Super Bowl, and I didn't see that much. I didn't see that much that makes me think he's worth a bunch of money. Pro Football Focus likes him. They don't love him, but they gave him a pretty good grade this last year. And if you go back to 2024, I don't even think he played very much in 2024, but the grade was just okay. And Spotrac thinks he's going to get paid like Edge that I think is a little bit better than him. 3 years, 52 million, 17.3 million per year. And I understand where that number comes from because he was a productive player his first 3 years. But to me, these last 2 years where, he got hurt and didn't play very much, and then this last year where his production, I think, was disappointing given the circumstances, I don't know. I don't know if I trust Jaelan Phillips. This is one that I'm kind of gun shy around. Next guy to consider would be Joey Bosa, and I'm mostly just going to talk about this guy because I know people are going to ask about him, but I'm going to be a pretty quick dismissal on Joey Bosa. For one, he's going to turn 31 this offseason. And to me, the most important thing here is that he's kind of already proven that he's not very good in a 3-4 defense. He's a 4-3 guy. He's better off in a 4-3. They tried to put him in a 3-4 for some of those seasons with the Chargers, and he just wasn't as good. And look, he was actually pretty effective for Buffalo this last season. I think he was a little underrated. He at least provided a lot of value for that Bills team defensively, but they play him the way he's meant to be played. You go back to 2024 with the Chargers, they were not big fans. And I think a big part of the problem is that they had him playing kind of standing up, and Joey Bosa is not a player that should be standing up. So you combine that with the injury history he has, which is substantial, and I'm a pretty hard no here, especially at this price. 2 years, 27.5 million. That's 13.7 million per year. This would have to be a ring chasing situation where Bosa's playing for way less than this. And even then, it's like, if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. I don't want to have to force him to do something that he can't do and have him and my team suffer for it. All right, so I'm not into the Bosa thing because of those reasons. Next guy, and this does feel like we're stepping down a tier a little bit, but Malcolm Koonce is really interesting. He is undersized, which I don't think McDonald will love, but we already have some bigger edge rushers in the building with DeMarcus Lawrence, so there is room in a Mike McDonald defense for a more undersized edge rusher like Malcolm Koonce. Former third-round pick of the Raiders, broke out in 2023, 8-sack season on a team that was not very good, and it seemed like things were really going in the right direction for Koonce. And then he missed all of 2024 with an injury, and he came back in 2025 and was fairly good, but definitely not where he was in 2023. But is he going to get there now, later? You know, it makes sense. You have a massive injury, you lose a season, the next season you come back, you're not going to be the same. But maybe Malcolm Koonce at 28 years old is going to finally ascend the way it looked like he was ascending in 2023. Now, PFF did not like his 2025 that much. Understand. Like, that's not surprising, right? You go back to 2023, though, they liked him a lot. They thought he was a good all-around defensive end. He's definitely the kind of guy that can play standing up, in my estimation. And because of the circumstances where he missed 2024 and didn't have a great 2025, he's going to be relatively well priced, right? Spotrac says 2 years, 19.8 million. Maybe that's accurate. I don't know. It's hard to know with these things. These mid-level guys can go one way or the other, especially at a position like edge rusher, but not even 10 million a year. Like, Boye Mafe is projected to get more money than this, and I think Boye Mafe is going to get a lot more money than this. Would you rather have Boye Mafe for 15 million or Malcolm Koonce for 10 million? To me, it's a no-brainer, especially because you do have some reason to believe that Malcolm Koonce is going to ascend above what he was in 2025. And Mafe, I kind of feel like we know what he is. And what he is a pretty good player, but I don't look at Boy excuse me. I don't look at Boye Mafe and see somebody that's ever going to be a 10 sack a year guy. Koonce, I feel like the door is open. And again, if you are not going to go out and get a Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett type, then these are the kind of guys you have to be seeking out. You have to find the right guys that play at about this level for about this price, and then you need them to deliver, right? Khalil Mack is a unique circumstance. That's why I'm hyping Khalil Mack up so much, because I think he might be hungry for a ring and might take a discount. And Mack's made tons of money in the NFL. But you also have to find a guy like a Malcolm Koonce to hit on. Somebody that people don't know that much about, somebody that's not going to get a ton of money, but can be good for you, and then you need them to actually be good for you. All right, so that would be one guy I'm kicking the tires on. And one more guy for this video, one more starter level defensive end, Joseph Ossai. Joseph Ossai, only going to be 36, or excuse me, 26 this offseason, by the way. Not old, relatively young, coming from the Bengals, third round pick in 2021. Been fairly productive for them. He never really had that big breakout year, might not have it in him, but he's had 5 sacks each of the last 2 seasons, and he's been a relatively consistent presence. He hasn't missed very many games to injury. Did miss 3 last year, but other than that, he's done all right. And these last 2 seasons, he's become a valuable edge rusher in this league. Now, you're on that Bengals defense. Is that going to be something you hold against him really hard, or is that something you're going to say, well, he's got nothing to work with around him, so we're going to take him out of that circumstance and see if he can be better on a better defense? That's the hard part. Pro Football Focus is kind of lukewarm on him. This last year, 64. The year before that, even worse. So they're not big fans of Osai, but there is a valuable player in here somewhere. And Spotrac thinks you're going to be able to get him long term for a cheap price, or relatively speaking. 4 years, 36.8 million. So 9.2 million per year. That's pretty good. You get him for his whole prime. And if he ascends to a higher level in the future, then you benefit because I do think he's going to get a longer term deal because he is younger. And I think something like this could make sense. And I think something like this, it 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 translates. So Joseph Osai going to be another guy. Not one of my favorites. There are concerns. Is he going to be able to play the run? Is he going to be able to make a clean transition to a 3-4? But these are the kind of guys you have to look at, and then you have to make your call and make it right. Okay, so that is going to do it for this video. There's going to be more edge rushers in future videos. We're going to kind of step down another tier going forward, but these are the guys I would consider to be like starter level. They can play in this league. They can even start for you, but they're not going to be Pro Bowlers, I don't think. And you're going to have to find a way to incorporate them effectively. Okay. Everyone have a good rest of your day. Go Hawks. More videos coming soon. And see you guys.